2 of the fantasy football season, and he has a few running backs I would bench this week. The first guy, Saquon Barkley of the New York Football Giants. So in week 1, Saquon Barkley, limited role, definitely not 100% with that ACL. And this Denver Bronco defense, they played a great game on defense and really limited Barkley. He still had 12 total touches in the game, 11 carries, 26 yards, and 1 catch for 1 yard on 3 targets in this game. This Giant offensive line, they don't look good. And this week, it's a short turnaround here with the ball game tonight at the Washington football team, where this is going to be an NFC East defensive battle, in my opinion. Ryan Fitzpatrick's out for the Washington football team, so Heineke's going to be the starting quarterback. And right here, I think this football team, they're going to try to stop Barkley and make Daniel Jones try to beat him like the Denver Broncos did, and that worked out for the Broncos defense. I think we see the same type of game plan here for the Washington defense, and their defense I'm highly ranking this week, so it's a tough matchup for Barkley. He didn't look 100%, and this week I would bench him. I know a lot of people took him in the late first, early second round, but last week he didn't get the job done, and with the short week, once again, he's a guy I can't trust, and he won't get the job done again, so I would put Barkley on the bench. The next running back's Darrell Henderson of the Los Angeles Rams. So the Rams, it was a great week 1 for them, runaway victory versus the Chicago Bears. And Henderson, he had a good ball game in that one, 16 carries, 70 yards, and a rushing touchdown, and he even added 1 catch for 17 yards, something he rarely did last season. But this week, they're in Indianapolis, and Indianapolis, they're a pretty good run defense, if that. Last week, it was a lot of passing for the Seattle Seahawks, even though I know Chris Carson cracked 90 yards in that game. But this one, I think Matthew Stafford's going to look to air it out. And this week, I just don't like Henderson as good as other running backs if I had the opportunity. Obviously, if you're in a deep league, 12-team league, where you start 3 flexes or whatever the deal is, Henderson's obviously a decent start. But this week, I definitely could see a bust week out of him for Henderson, where he's only going to score maybe 10 to 12 points. So right here, I'm not a big Henderson guy really coming into the year. He don't receive the ball out of the backfield. I know he's got no competition really. Many people thought Sony Michel would be competition, but so far in week 1, he didn't get many carries. So I think Henderson's still going to get 15, 20 touches a week here for this Ram team. But right now, this week in Indianapolis, I just think he has a down week here, is Henderson. The next running back I'd look to bench, Damien Harris of the New England Patriots. So the Patriots, they were using 3 running backs on the day there, but Damien Harris in week 1 versus the Miami Dolphins, he got the full workload pretty much out of all the backs. He had 23 carries, 100 yards, 2 catches, 17 yards, but a fumble loss. And now reports came out the other day that he might lose some of his role here as Damien Harris. But Stevenson had a fumble as well in this game. James White, he looked pretty smooth. But this week, it's at the New York Jets, this matchup. And the Jets, they're pretty decent, I believe, versus straight runners. Obviously, Harris, he's not going to be a running back that's going to catch the ball out of the backfield a lot. And this week, with this report coming out, I just don't have confidence in Harris. He's going to have a reduced role, possibly, reporters are saying, after the fumble. But I still think he'll get the 15 to 18 touches. But this Jet defense, like I mentioned, they could stop running backs at a decent rate. And I think they'll stop Harris to a decent rate in this one. I still could see him getting 50 total yards and maybe finding the end zone. But right here, I just can't trust him each and every week. Here's Damien Harris. And right now, you know how Bill Belichick is with running backs. If you fumble, you're in the doghouse. And he possibly could be in the doghouse in this divisional matchup this week. So right here, I will go out there and bench Harris. Because even in one of my leagues, I'm putting him on the bench this week. The next running back I would bench is Mike Davis of the Atlanta Falcons. So I had high hopes coming into the year for Mike Davis. But so far in week 1, the game script obviously didn't go the way that I thought it would go. I thought it'd be a close shootout between Philly and the Falcons. But Philly, they kept their end of the bargain up, what I thought was going to happen. They scored 32 points in the game. But this game got out of hand by the second or third quarter here. He finished the game, though, Davis, full workload, 15 carries, 50 yards rushing, 3 catches, 23 yards. So if he added a touchdown in that ball game, he would have finished with 16 fantasy points in PPR leagues. But this week, it's a tough matchup at Tampa Bay that just shut down Ezekiel Elliott in week 1. And right here, I know Mike Davis is a good receiver out of the backfield. We saw it last season when he filled in for Christian McCaffrey. But right here this week, it's another game where the Falcons, in my opinion, they're going to be down early and often, and they're going to have to abandon the run. And then at that point, you would hope Mike Davis gets a cheap red zone touchdown, or he catches a lot of balls out of the backfield, which he could. But right now, I think a lot of fantasy owners have Mike Davis as their third or fourth running back on most of their rosters here. But this week, I don't like the matchup, and week 1 was a little discouraging what Davis did. And even Cordell Patterson had 8 carries in that game. So this week, I would bench him at a tough Tampa Bay defense versus the run in the 5th and final running back. I look to bench this week's Myles Gaskin of the Miami Dolphins. So Gaskin, he's the number 1 man over there running back in Miami. But in week 1, mixed bag of results. He only got 9 carries, though, for 49 yards. But the 5 catches for 27 yards saved his day in PPR leagues. But the 9 carries is obviously troubling to me. And in week 1, this Buffalo Bill defense, they shut down Najee Harris to 15 carries for 46 yards in that game. And I think Harris is a better running back than Gaskin overall here. But Gaskin, if he could get a few catches a game, 3 to 5 catches a game, and he could get good rushing yards on top of it, he's going to be a solid number 2 running back for fantasy owners this year. But this week, I just don't like the matchup. And if you have a better option, you obviously bench Gaskin in this AFC East divisional matchup between the Bills and the Dolphins, because I think it's going to be a lot of 1 or 2 yard runs for Gaskin and a lot of just tough grinded out type of runs as well here. So this week, I don't like him after what we saw the Bills do to Najee Harris. So that's a few running backs I look to bench here in week 2 of the fantasy football season.